We are the Farrells: John, Sarah, Emma, Matthew, Ellie, Alyssa, and Brooke. We sold our stuff and left our home to travel and see the world. And these are our million adventures. Sydney, Australia, a modern city on a coastline with ancient roots. Sydney is a symbol around the world for its fusion of culture, modernity, and its embracing of the outdoors and wild spaces. Sydney is unique in that you can at one moment be in the heart of downtown, and within a short drive or ferry ride, be in the thick of the Australian bush. There are over 200 national parks within Sydney in New South Wales, and its coastal waters teem with marine wildlife, some of which can be found nowhere else on Earth. So we've been in Sydney for about a week now, and I'm just blown away by how cool it is here. I mean, and I'm not a city person. There's this interesting fusion of parks and wild spaces here that you just don't find anywhere else. The harbor water is so clean, and the beaches are just pristine. The harbor itself is just beautiful. I mean, you have the Sydney Opera House, you've got the Harbor Bridge. Everywhere you look, there's something interesting to see and do. So what is there to do in Sydney? Well, there's the obvious stuff for starters. You have the Sydney Opera House, museums, parks, the Harbor Bridge. There are lots of places to shop if you're into that sort of thing, places to eat. Of course, you have all the fantastic beaches along the coast, which even in the fall when we went were full of active swimmers, surfers, and beachgoers. We especially enjoyed snorkeling in some of the best spots around Sydney, such as at Shelley Beach and Gordon's Bay. One of the days we were there, we went to the world-famous Taronga Zoo, which, to be honest, was fantastic. It's the best zoo I've ever been to, and we've been to a lot of them. So, speaking of wildlife, I sometimes feel like Australia gets a bad rap for being a place where all the creatures want to kill you. And although it's true there are a lot of venomous creatures here, snakes, spiders, jellyfish, there's sharks, I feel like nature documentaries make it look like you're gonna get off the plane and you're just gonna get attacked. You're instantly gonna die. I think it's a lot less scary than they make it seem. You have to remember, people live here every day. Let's go over the statistics for a second, shall we? First off, more people are killed in the United States by animals than in Australia. Second of all, the animal that kills the most people in Australia is not a snake, it's not a spider or jellyfish or sharks, it's horses. You are more likely to fall off a horse and die than get attacked by a shark, or anything else for that matter. In fact, I went looking for potential scary creatures while we were there. I was hoping to see a large huntsman spider, or maybe a shark while in the ocean. We didn't see any. There were some large Australian golden orb weaving spiders around the city, parks, and beaches, but we didn't see any other types of spiders. So if you're scared to come to Australia because you've heard horror stories of venomous creatures, don't be. They are there, I'm sure, but they want to be left alone, just as much as you want to leave them alone. With that said, there is plenty of friendly wildlife in and around Sydney for animal lovers. Australia is home to 56 different species of parrots. Not all of them live in Sydney, but there are lots here. It's just something I was totally unprepared for. Back in the States, these are birds we would have as pets that you'd see in pet stores. And here they're just eating in the park, landing on your windowsill. They're all over the place. It's kind of crazy. You know, I think my favorite thing about Australia is the amazing wildlife that calls this continent home. There are animals here that you can't find anywhere else on Earth. I mean, you've got kangaroos, all sorts of marsupials, even just in the city, flying around. There are cockatoos and lorikeets, all sorts of exotic birds and parrots. There's even flying foxes, huge bats, just living in the park in downtown Sydney. The parks in the city are havens for these birds. Parks like the Royal Botanical Gardens, which are amazing by the way, as well as the massive Centennial Park. Centennial Park also has a humongous colony of flying foxes. That's right, bats, the size of house cats, live right here in the city. These bats are an important part of the ecosystem here in Australia. They help to pollinate the eucalyptus trees, which they visit to drink the nectar from their flowers. They also eat fruit, which can be a point of conflict for fruit tree growers. It can be a little startling at first to see bats with wingspans up to a meter flying over your head, but they pose no threat to people. People actually pose more threats to them. Flying foxes in Australia have a vulnerable conservation status.
So I feel like no video about Australia would be complete without mentioning its most iconic animal, the kangaroo. Although there are places around Sydney where you can see wallabies and maybe kangaroos in the wild, if you really want to see them, you need to go out to the country. And that's exactly what we did. But that is another video. All right, friends, I hope you enjoyed this video, this little taste of Sydney. I mostly talked about animals because that's what I like, but Sydney really has something for everybody. It's an amazing place, and I highly recommend visiting if you ever have a chance. If you like these videos, go ahead and hit that like button, and if you want to see more of them, hit subscribe. We'd love you to join us on our million adventures. We'll see you next time.
Are we there yet?